regular City Council meeting for Monday, February 7th, 2022. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, you can please call the roll.
Edwards.
Here.
Pasapatinos.
Here.
Houston.
Here.
Kozak.
Here.
Panzera.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
President Keeler.
Here.
Mayor Kearns.
Mayor Kearns is excused.
Director Dvorsky.
Here.
City Attorney Kuzan.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
All are present except Mayor Kearns.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of proceedings for January 3rd and January 18th regular special council meetings. Is there any discussion or motions?
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on, we have a presentation by Mr. Josh Roth from ODA. Who'd like to join us up here, please?
From CODA. Is that what you said? I thought I heard
Yeah.
ODA. Sorry.
You're not the only one who came here tonight, is it? That was
Okay.
an inside joke.
I hope so.
It was way inside.
All right. Well, thank you, Council President Keeler, other members of City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, give you an update on the Link Us initiative and where we stand at the moment. My name is Josh Roth. I'm the Economic Development Director for Central Ohio Transit Authority. What the Link Us initiative is really trying to do is figure out the ways that we can align our initiatives to make sure that we can accomplish the goals that the region's laid out in a number of the plans that exist. It's a partnership between CODA, with the City of Columbus, with Franklin County, and with the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. And so whether that be focusing on equity and affordability, opportunity, environmental and financial sustainability, or innovation and economic development, what we're really trying to do is prepare for the growth that Central Ohio is undoubtedly expected to see. We've done an awful lot of planning throughout the years. It started off in 2014 with Morpsey's Insight 2050. That was taking a look at population projections at the time. They had come up with a figure of roughly 1 million people by 2050. And with the announcement of projects like Intel, we may blow past those population projections. And that has followed on with plans in 2017 and 2019. The corridor concepts work was, what would it look like if we had different scenarios of land use? So if we carried on with our current growth pattern, with our land use pattern, what would it look like ultimately? And then if we tried to align our efforts, focus our incentives, reform our zoning, and take advantage of some of these federal programs that existed even before the bipartisan infrastructure bill, what could it look like if we started to try to encourage density along these high-capacity transit corridors? We've been working with our partners to make sure that the Link Us initiative is aligned with all of these other efforts. So I'm from CODA. The primary objective of this is the high-capacity transit, but that's not entirely what all of this is about. This is about making sure that we have mobility options in general. So in addition to that focused growth, public health equity and quality of life, and then improving access to jobs and housing, we're trying to make sure that this fits holistically within the broader regional initiatives, whether that be Vision Zero, which is trying to improve safety for pedestrians, the City of Columbus's Climate Action Plan, Rapid 5 and the Greenway improvements work, and making sure that we have a holistic and connected mobility system. So in short, by investing in mobility infrastructure and trying to incentivize compact and connected development, we're hoping to focus growth and increase job access to affordable housing, and then just general improvement and access to all sorts of different critical services, whether that be health or education. And hopefully these two things improve the overall quality of life and increase opportunities for all residents in Central Ohio. Some potential LinkUs elements, as I've mentioned, are not just on the public transportation in and of itself. There's making sure that we have bikeways, sidewalk networks, and greenways that those are all core to the program, and we want to make sure that they're connected with mobility hubs and that people can efficiently move around, that these networks are connected to each other, and in a way that each one of our community investments supports the other. So throughout this process, the LinkUs initiative, which I think we've been working on it for about 2 years, we've learned that a lot of our peer cities, the cities that we like to compare ourselves to, Austin, Nashville, Charlotte, they started going through a process similar to this on how they modernize the public transportation system. But really, we are a little bit ahead of the curve from where they were when they were starting on it. We've learned that a lot of our peers are reacting to the population growth that they were seeing. We already have a lot of population growth pressures in a lot of different policy areas in Central Ohio, but we're really trying to be proactive and make sure that we can accommodate all of the new residents that are projected to come. This is a slide which depicts the concept corridors. There were about 8 originally contemplated. Those are the areas that are the lighter blue-gray areas. Those are still under consideration. Right now we've got the West Corridor on West Broad, the East Corridor on East Main, and the Northwest Corridor that are all under planning and designing. The East-West Corridor is a little bit further ahead than the Northwest Corridor is. And then in the bottom left is a picture of what we envision this might look like. So you've got the bus rapid transit high capacity line that is center running. It's dedicated lane. It's got level boarding where ideally you would have a payment platform or a payment option at the platform to try to speed up the boardings and alightings process. We've got mixed modal transportation infrastructure. So on the one side of the road, you've got sidewalks, you've got a multi-use pass on the other, and you've got these high visibility sidewalks. And then safety improvements for these intersections is also going to be a big deal because you've got people that are trying to make their way to a center boarding station. So this is what we envision that the high capacity transit corridors could look like. Probably most germane to Grandview is the Northwest Corridor. So here is a depiction of what that looks like. Right now, the locally preferred alternative is basically just going up Olentangy River Road and to Bethel. There's going to be a second locally preferred alternative phase that's going to try to determine where exactly we draw the end of the line, whether it goes down Henderson, Bethel, 161, and then where exactly in Dublin would it terminate. This is a site that depicts the proposed stations. This is a little bit hard to see, so I apologize. But the dark blue is all of the parcels that are within a quarter mile of those bus stations. And so that's what is the typical standard for high connectivity to transit. And then it fades out as you go from a half mile to a 1 mile walk away from the corridor. And I confess I'm not an engineer, so I don't know exactly how best to describe this project schedule, but we're somewhere on the left side of the screen. There's a faint yellow line that says "We are here." We're in the process of entering 10% design. And so I think the biggest takeaway from this is that each one of these corridors is a multi-year project, the actual construction of it all. think we're close to 30% design, if not already. And we're on the east-west corridor, at least on the western corridor. And so the next step for these after you get to, after you get past 10% design, which is adopting a locally preferred alternative, is to enter the FTA portal. So the Federal Transit Administration is the primary source of funding that we're going to be going after this. There will be a local match that's required, but it's a significant grant opportunity that can help us complete these corridors. And so then we'll go into the portal, and then we'll seek a rating, and then we'll get on a waiting list, and then it'll take a little bit of time for the project to trickle up, and then hopefully sometime in about 4 to 6 years, we'll be starting construction. Later this year in the spring, the LINCUS executive and steering committees are going to be releasing a report, and it's going to outline the different options and scenarios for the high priority transportation investments in addition to the high capacity transit. So we're also taking a look at what fixed route improvements can we make to the system so that it better integrates and carries some passengers to the high capacity transit. We're also looking at the opportunity to expand microtransit. So we have a CODA Plus, which is an on-demand system that operates a little bit like Uber Pool currently in Grove City and in Westerville, and then on the south side of Columbus. We're taking a look at the bicycle and pedestrian and trail networks. And then last but not least, we're going to need to make some roadway improvements, in particular on the safety side. And then it will also lay out some of the different funding mechanisms and the different grant opportunities that we as a region should be pursuing. So what can Grandview Heights do to help us with this? Well, we would ask, and I think we've done a pretty good job of this along the way, but hopefully we are more engaged with you and that you guys are more engaged with us as we move forward in this process, because before we were kind of at a high level and we're going to get down into some specifics. But to incorporate the LINCUS principles into your guys' development concepts, whether that's your zoning, whether that's your tax incentives, whether that's your capital improvement program, trying to find ways where we can align these investments so that we can both take advantage of the narratives and maybe even use each other's projects as leverage as we pursue some of this unprecedented money that we've got coming from the federal government. And then some of these other options are, they're optional, but we would like to at some point potentially host a community meeting here locally to explain this, whether that be advocate-led or city-led. And then also eventually for members of the council and perhaps the mayor, members of the administration to participate in additional engagement opportunities and strategic planning efforts. And then last but not least, I think it's important to remember that the reason why we're doing all of this is because it's about improving the quality of lives of every resident. These are moms and dads, kids, grandparents, college students, and everything in our community ultimately falls back on transportation and access. And when you rely on public transportation, it only makes the access to those opportunities a little more difficult. We live in Ohio, as an auto-dominated culture, and so we really want to build some infrastructure that presents mobility options so that the automobile isn't your only mode of choice. If you want to walk, you can walk. If you want to bike, you can bike. And at this point, I'll entertain any questions if we have any.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
I'll ask a question. Thank you for coming and for the presentation. So with the federal grant dollars, those are coming from, I may have a couple together, from the federal infrastructure bill.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of programming that's coming through the Department of Transportation, and it is the largest amount of additional funding into public transportation in the history of the United States. So we are working with the Mid Ohio Regional Planning Commission, and we also have a lobbying firm on retainer that's helping us to identify some of these opportunities, taking a look at the list of projects that we've identified and link us, and trying to help us guide where our application and grant writing efforts should go.
Fantastic. And then in terms of, I think you referenced matching funds. Did you reference matching funds as well?
Yeah, there's a local match. It's the Competitive Infrastructure Grant, I believe is what it's called. It's a CIG. It's the program that that's designed to help major metros implement high capacity transit, and it does have a local match requirement.
So I was curious along those lines, what, who the decision makers will be? Will that be Franklin County? Will it be?
We have an executive committee that consists of leadership at CODA, leadership at Franklin County, leadership at the City of Columbus, and then also the Mid Ohio Regional Planning Commission. And then there's a steering committee that is it's much broader. It consists of a lot of community advocates and other partners from important institutions like Ohio State, Nationwide Children's, and the like. And so they discuss these, and they'll have the input on this report that's going to lay out the options that we have moving forward. So whether that's adopting more tax increment financing, whether that's spreading out the investment over time to make it a little bit more affordable, or if there's opportunities for us to work together and leverage some of these federal grant opportunities to leverage our local dollars and stretch them a little further.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to get at if there'd be any place where the funding, federal funding could get tangled up with, having to have local match or decision makers approve those local match dollars.
Yes, definitely. But that's where I think making sure that we are aligned in our capital improvement programming could be useful, because there might be some things that we're doing already that might qualify as the local match to some of these grant opportunities.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, am I right in saying that Broad Street and Wollongong River Road corridor up to wherever, those are sort of the two identified early places where design and potential implementation can happen? Like, are those the two places, or are those just the two that we're seeing?
And also East Main Street. So those are the three that are in progress right now. CODA is leading West Broad. The City of Columbus is leading the Northwest Corridor. We've started some very early work on the East Corridor on East Main, and so it's sort of a manpower restraint at this point, and eventually we'll be adding on additional corridors if it makes strategic sense.
And was the prioritization of those corridors based upon existing economic nodes or future potential growth opportunity for?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. So in some cases, we're looking at redevelopment opportunity, and in other cases, we're looking at economic activity that could spin off the growth that would be needed to support high-capacity transit.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? I would say I love riding CODA bus when I can. It's wonderful. The bus drivers are always so nice, and I meet the most interesting people, and it gets me to a lot of places I need to go. I would encourage residents and everyone sitting here tonight to try out CODA. You've had a lot of new programs within the past few years, which has really transformed the experience, I think. And there's always room for more growth. And we are a very car-dominated society, and so understanding how our transit works and where there might be opportunities for improvement, I think would be beneficial as we move forward. So I would encourage everyone to try that out and use the buses if you haven't done so already.
Unfortunately, an everyday rider.
Yes.
joining us tonight. We really appreciate the update, and we hope to be in touch and discuss further as it moves along.
Excellent, absolutely. One last shameless plug, if I might, link us to columbus.com if anybody is interested. We have a whole bunch of planning documents that you can read.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have comments from visitors. I have one comment form, though none submitted online. For Mr. Austin Carter, it's probably Westwood Avenue, and you would like to address snow removal and bus stops.
Hi, I'm Austin Carter, 1203 Westwood Avenue. Real short, I want to say thank you for the excellent city services for snow removal on our streets. Super fast, man, big ice storm, come out a day later, totally clear. Super great, makes everything safer because of that, you can get around, super happy, so thank you. And then just following on from that, and we couldn't have a better lead-in, my family tries to ride the bus when we can, including taking the number 13 bus down to Stevenson Elementary School to drop the girls off. And the Coda bus, just with all the snow, the stop is totally full of snow. So I just wanted to just inquire if there's some capacity or something. I know budgets and things, the city could look into maybe some way of providing that same awesome service to make public transit as convenient as other modes of transportation. That'd be really great. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Fortunately, Mayor Kern is not here tonight. You probably shed some light on that. Bob, do you have anything?
We'll definitely look into that. We thank you for the nice comments about the street work. Sometimes a plow, whether it's a private contractor or a city, can overshoot it and it winds up on the sidewalk type of thing. So I'm alerted to a situation like that over the weekend. Then we also have situations where you try to pile up the streets, to clear it off the streets, but you have to be judicious of where you throw the snow. So one of the things that we changed this season was, particularly along First Avenue as an example, where the school crossings are. So we don't want to just throw the snow off to the side and then Monday morning comes and all of a sudden your crossing guards and the children are trying to get across these things. So we're directing, the service director is having them plow it to the other part of the intersection that's not a crossing area. And then our team is going to clear that intersection so that the crossing guards and the children don't have to, hop over mountains of snow. In the same spirit, thank you for your comment, and we'll see about adding to the equation, keeping the bus areas clear.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for that update, Director DeBoer. And we appreciate all the work that you and the service department does. Moving on, we have department head reports. If you'd like to come forward, please. All right.
As far as the building and zoning department, you'll see I gave you the staff report, the monthly report. If you guys have any questions, that would be appreciated. I'll clarify anything that you ask me. We had one of our employees who left for another opportunity with the city of Dublin, so we posted an inspector's job. The Block G project is NRIs. They're south of the 1,000 Yard Street, the Nationwide building. That one will be underway. That's on Yard Street. That's a 5-story mixed use, first floor commercial, top 4 floors are residential. The MI Homes 35 lots that you guys were involved in, that'll start sometime in March. We're projecting that. Any questions?
Are there any questions for the director?
Any fun or unique updates for South of Goodale?
South of Goodale, Tri-W is, as far as I know, they're on schedule. for what they're doing. I haven't seen any new projects for the rest of the site. We haven't seen that yet. Typically, that would come to economic development and planning for me.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Good to see you guys again.
Thank you very much, Director. We appreciate you being here tonight and your updates.
Thanks. Gotta go on inspections now.
All right, next we have council committee
Work
report.
without a permit.
Finance,
No report.
planning and administration, no report. Recreation services and public facilities.
We met this evening at 6 p.m., covered the agenda item as indicated. I'd be happy to brief with any questions or comments, but I think all of us were here with the exception of Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any questions further on that? All right, moving on, safety,
No report.
economic development.
Yes, our committee met just prior to this to discuss the first item of business on the agenda. We can talk about it when we get there.
Thank you. Council liaison, Grandview Library.
Yes, today I met with Ryan McDonald and Kanan Faulkner at the library, and they gave me these to hand out to you guys. A couple of notes from the meeting. They announced today that they have collaborated with the Columbus Museum of Art, and you can call the library now and reserve tickets for up to 8 people to get in for free to the library. You call and reserve it, and then you would go and pick this up. It's good for 7 days, and you can get this once a month. And it allows you free entrance, and then free parking, and then the 10 to 20% or whatever amount it is at the cafe and bookshop, just like you would if you were a member of the museum. They also, I didn't realize they have an app, so on page 6 at the bottom, they have several apps, but the one I was gonna highlight, page 6 on the bottom, you can enter your library card in the app, so you don't have to take the card with you, you just have your phone. You can use that in the library, and then you can also check out your own books in the library through that app feature, and you can reserve books through the app. And then another thing on page 10, there's a bunch of things you can get off the website, digital downloads of movies and music, and then also they have a subscription to the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Columbus Dispatch. So if you want to read any news, you can go to their website and log in, and you're able to read that. So when you see the Columbus Dispatch with subscriber-only content and you don't have a subscription, if you have your library card, then you're able to read that up through their website. Thank you.
Lots of fun updates in the library, thank you. Moving on to the school, this Thursday at 7 p.m., the U.S. Naval Academy Brass Quintet is giving a free concert, and that will be in the new comments. And that's the update there. Moving on to chamber, we will have a change. Now that Councilmember Houston will be taking over Sustainable 2050 duties, we will reassign the chamber to Councilmember Edwards. And seeing as this is just done, I don't expect an update tonight.
Oh,
unless we have one.
the other thing is they have their annual meeting on Thursday, and I'll be there and bring back relevant information next month.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on, planning commission.
There were no items of business, no applicants, no planning commission meeting took place in January.
Thanks, Coda.
The code advisory panel met the 25th, January 25th. I wasn't able to make it due to conflict, but some of the relevant things that were discussed, of course, Linked Us was discussed. Some of the lines in the Grandview area, May the 22nd, the 13 is projected to become the number 75. The number 3, which is on 3rd Avenue up to Northwest Boulevard, and then it turns, that is, they're gonna contract that line, routes for that, on the weekends, only 1 hour, or every hour rather than every half hour. And the number 22, which goes to the OSU campus, from the eastern part of Grandview, that's gonna be increasing a bit. And, the number 5 on Fifth Avenue, there is one stop that's being taken away that's west of here. But that's the only things that are relevant to Grandview.
Great, thank you. Moving on, Morksey, the first meeting of the year for the commission will be held this Thursday, and I look forward to bringing lots of updates back. Destination Grandview?
Yes, there's a lot of fun updates from Destination Grandview. First, Destination Grandview, in partnership with Experience Columbus, just recently launched the Distillery Trail Tour. So much like beer trails and some of these other things, there's an app for it, and anybody who wants to log in and download that, it takes you through some of the various area distilleries, and you get like a little passport, and once you've got to all of them, then there's like a prize. I might have had a cocktail when I went to this thing, so I don't remember exactly what all the details are. But a lot of the distilleries are here in Grandview or in the Grandview area, so that is why Destination Grandview wanted to partner with Experience Columbus for this. And it was a really neat like kickoff launch event that I was able to go to at Echo Spirits, that's while in Columbus in the kind of general area, but obviously we've got Highway Distillery that is here with us, and just another fun little thing to do to get people in the area and to patronize our restaurants and other area activities. In the same vein, there is a pizza trail being launched soon as well, and as you all know, we are an embarrassment of riches in pizza places in the area. So that'll be something to look out for soon. Another item that we touched on, conferences are starting to come back. There's more inquiries about, hotels being blocked and conferences coming to the hotels, and so Destination Grandview is looking to update some of their printed media. One of the first things that Brian is looking to do, he's got like a little brochure that has almost like a spreadsheet like graphic that lists restaurants and seating capacity and what type of like board meeting-esque capabilities these various restaurants have. So that needs to be updated, because as we all know, unfortunately, there's so many places that have closed or changed their hours, or changed hands, something new since that was last updated. So that is being looked at. And then one of the last things that we touched on, one of our most beloved area events, Tour de Grandview, Destination Grandview's kind of handed over the planning of that to the boosters, which makes a lot of sense financially and just planning purposes. So not expected for much to change really, but just keep your eye out for some updates and improvements and some minor route changes and sponsorship changes for that, and I'm looking forward to it. June. I don't know the date. I think it's the 10th. I'm excited to have it back. I could keep going, but I think that's probably good.
Yes, I am looking forward to serving. I'll be meeting with Brandy Whetstone of Morksey, sustainability lead person there in February, and then the first full meeting of the group will be in March, and I'll report back.
Thank you. Either way, if you were to present, you are welcome to leave. You can stay as long as you want, but you are dismissed if you would like to continue on your evening somewhere else. Moving on to the mayor's report, Director Dvorsky, would you like to combine your report with the mayor's report?
Yes, the mayor asked me to share some comments with everyone. Clearly, the first topic should be snow and ice. And that went really well, and appreciate all the comments. I'm looking at 4 pages of comments that Aubrey shared with department heads earlier in the day on how pleased people are the way that event was handled. 2 of my favorite comments I was so impressed with how quickly Grandview was drivable, especially as compared to other, you know, communities around the area. So people notice the difference when you come into Grandview, and as residents well know. My other favorite comment was, excellent work team, our service crew is the best in all 4 seasons. So, you know, whether it's this or picking up leaves, you know, these folks work hard. And not just the service department, the service department this morning, just so you know, they had a debriefing at 10 o'clock with the crew leaders. You remember on the salary ordinance, we had a section of the crew leaders, those who've been assigned, and those people had great leadership during this event. So they had that debriefing, and then at noon today, it was all hands on deck meeting where they talked about what went well, what they would do differently, and so forth. And so, you know, there's the follow-up, you know, where you do the self-evaluation of how the event went. But it wasn't just the service department. You know, one of the principles we have in this administration, we refer to as the 3 C's, which are coordination, cooperation, and communication. And service department had a lot of help from others that also need a good shout out. The fire department, I talked to them, the fire chief that morning, and he says, you know, we got the word out there to please stay off the streets and how dangerous this might be. And he says for 3 hours, we didn't get a single call in there because everybody was being good, everybody was staying home, everybody was being careful type of thing. So, and also the communication was great. I want to give a shout out to Aubrey Hale. She's highly skilled at sending out communications, and so you went to our robust webpage and you knew exactly what was going on and what was being asked. So, and the Parks Department, you know, they go around and they have oversized snow blowers, and they clear the sidewalks and the intersections as they could. So it really is a team effort. So we're very, very, very pleased about that, and I hope you are as well. And then the next subject would be, I always like to focus on, you know, a shout out to the department heads. This month I want to talk about the fire department. And some things they've changed on their reports. They do the typical updates and information as you'd expect, but they started featuring some other subsets now. Like there's a subset on fire prevention and public education activities, and the 2 principal people involved in those are Fire Marshal Chris Everard and Medic Samantha Brown. And then a new one we're featuring now too is a section called Grandview Comings and Goings. This is another example of the 3 C's, and the mayor's focus is to interdepartmental cooperation. So in the comings and goings section, that we are now listing what businesses have come in, which ones have left, which ones might have relocated in our own area. And so we looked at where does that information come from? Well, it comes from the fire department because they do the certificate of occupancy. It comes from the building department that reviews drawings, and it comes from the finance tax team that says, hey, we noticed that this business is not there, or we do our hello, welcome to Grandview, here's how we can help you type of thing. So all that interdepartmental cooperation is gelling. So Mayor and I are both very happy about that. The other thing I call attention on the fire report is the run codes in there. The run codes are a canned software program that tells you, they just download that and how many incidents of what you had. But what they've done now is they've summarized that into notable stats. So you take all of that raw data, and now you can look at the key categories of the type of responses and calls for service we get. So I encourage you to take a peek at that because they're very proud of that. All the council reports they're more graphics on them now, they're more descriptive for all the department head reports. They take great pride in that. So if you have the occasion to send a department an email someday that says, hey, I really like these reports. I'm sure they appreciate that. Other thing that we've been working on the last few months is with the Civil Service Commission is that we're very, very close to finalizing the civil service rules with wonderful help from Leilani and also from Joelle. And service commission members, civil service commission members are very gracious. They're helping us streamline our processes. They're open to new ideas and they share their insights with us. And our focus is really on recruitment. You know, that's a challenge these days for everybody. So how do we attract people to Grandview? Are we casting the net in the right places? Are our job descriptions accurate? And basically, we're trying to get the word out that we offer a good competitive compensation package, and most of all, this is a good place to work that's both rewarding and fulfilling. So, very pleased. That was a lot of work to get that done and current, and once again, Leilani and Joel are awesome, as well as the commission. And then, the final items that I want to talk about is, you know, we have important projects going on, and now that I'm in this role, you know, as I look at these project phases, I was always focused on financials, but now working with Liz, I learn new expressions all the time. Like, there's 3 phases of a project: the dream phase, the vision phase, and the reality phase. And so, in that, we have, let's talk about our municipal campus. That effort. The dream phase has been going on for many years. It's almost like you're living in the movie Groundhog Day, because we've been talking about this for a long time. We are now in the vision phase. We're very close to putting that vision and those ideas that have been gathered over the last year onto paper. And so we're really excited about that. And finally, I'm pleased to be part of the reality phase now, which is working through the financials and the challenges currently in the building profession to make this happen. I've learned a lot, so much in the last year about building an actual building that it makes you realize how much you don't know until you talk to somebody who actually knows their stuff. And Liz really knows her stuff, and I'm confident that with her guidance and expertise that we will properly sequence all the tasks in front of us and get this building built. And then speaking of a 1-year anniversary, the other thing I wanted to mention was that gets us to the agenda tonight with Resolution 02-2022 for the Nordeca tailgate events preceding Columbus Crew soccer games. A year ago, in the 3 phases, the dream phase and the vision phase and the reality phase, the dream phase was that Grandview Heights could somehow be part of the great regional news that the Columbus Crew Stadium was coming to our area. Then in the vision phase, you know, they had a 4th of July open date, a pedestrian bridge was built, and the opportunity of creative people working together for the greater good of the area was dropped into our laps. So with the vision of an excellent overall experience for the fans, the Grandview Yard, the city, and the Columbus Crew team itself, these creative people have been working through the logistics, as the devil's always in the details, to make this awesome. So the dialogue that's taken place so far has been thoughtful and well-reasoned. And you know, as the mayor and I reflect on, it's time of year you reflect on the previous year, you know, we think about how many cities can say that they've actually had a major league franchise right at their doorstep. And we can do that. So now's the reality phase. The reality phase is tonight. It could come to fruition with council support of this resolution. So in summary, the administration, both the mayor and I, are supportive of this opportunity and hope you give it due consideration. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Director Jaworski. Moving on to Finance, Director Miller.
There's quite a bit in my report this month. I started out, there's 2 bills that could impact us that were introduced at the state level in December, The first one is House Bill 512, which would increase the city's contribution to Ohio Police and Fire Pension Fund. So it would bring both police and fire up to 26.5%. So the city pays whatever a firefighter or police officer earns, the city pays 26.5%, and it would go into a fund for their retirement. So currently we pay 19.5% for police and 24% for fire. This would bump it up. So this would cost the city over $200,000 a year, and it would continue to go up as pay rates went up. So that's the first bill that was introduced. And then there's Senate Bill 277, which is to reduce gas tax back to pre-2019 levels. In 2019, the state increased the gas tax by 10.5 cents per gallon. If they go back to the pre-2019 levels, it'll cost the city $154,000 in lost gas tax. And of course, we use gas tax for road repairs. So both of these were just introduced. They may have been assigned to committee, but it's very early on. So those are two things we're watching. The other thing, in January, we always receive our assessed property values from the county for the prior year. So these are the 2021 values. They went up 1%, which is to be expected. We have the triennial update in 2020, so usually the values won't increase a lot the year following. Our income tax withholdings were down 22%, but again, our net profits and individuals offset a lot of that, and in total, we were only down 2%. So these would be for December withholdings. We're just gonna continue watching and see how that changes and how that evolves. The good news is hotel tax seems to be back to where it was pre-pandemic. So we had good collections for December activity. Things seem to be going well when I talk to the hotels and to Destination Grandview, so we're hopeful that that has rebounded to where we were pre-pandemic. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Houston.
Would you repeat again, Director Miller, you said the income tax withholdings are down by 22%, but this was offset by what? Was it you said?
By individual and net profit taxes. So we
Okay.
get taxes from withholding, net profit, and individual, and our net profits and individuals came in high enough to offset most of the decline from withholdings.
Okay. And then I may have a conversation with you offline about the piece about educating, employers regarding work from home, because I've been informed by my employer, and I'm in a work from home situation, that it is complicated for them to make the adjustment. And I don't fully understand the reasons why, but I thought if we talked about it, I could
Yeah.
maybe convey to you from one employer what that situation is. But it's something to do with changing payroll paperwork.
Yes,
So-
it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's not an easy lift for a lot of companies, especially larger companies with a lot of employees. It's not an easy ask.
Okay.
So yeah, I can talk to you for sure. And we are also, the tax team, along with Chris Everard from the fire department, is going to have a lunch presentation for the chamber in March and kind of talk about some of these withholding issues and then some other business issues with the fire department.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Miller. Moving on, Director of Planning and Community Development, Director Colbert.
Thank you. So hit on just a few highlights. The top of the list of my report is about Bang the Table, the new community collaboration interaction web platform that we have. We are moving along with getting that up and ready to go live, and I'm still committing to have that ready to happen by end of February. So hopefully we'll be able to utilize that for our economic development, strategic planning, as well as some other planning that's upcoming. One of the things that they've offered up as a good idea at the beginning is to put something out fun for the community, so we're kind of brainstorming on that to get engagement and awareness of the site build up. So if you have any ideas, we're all ears. A little bit of an update on the Fairview project. One is that we did have a community meeting, and we dropped invitations personally to each of the residents on the street. We had a really nice presentation that I now have sitting in my living room in case anybody have questions, because we didn't have anybody show up that night. But hopefully that means that they're they feel like we've included them well so far, and we'll continue to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. The other little update on that project is that I believe that we had communicated that we thought it would start this summer. And now talking, we've really gotten into the nuts and bolts and details, and the school is kind of working on nuts and bolts and details too, with how we keep out of each other's way in a sense. And so it's looking likely that that project will push back and start next winter with some subgrade work, and then finish kind of concurrently with the school next summer. I'm happy to answer any other questions there might be on why that schedule is changing. I think it's all going to work out well. The school's been really collaborative, and I think we've got a good plan going. Trying to minimize the pain for everybody. Spaces and places. We have identified, so in here as well, obviously it mentions that we are in receipt now of a final report on the municipal building that really outlines programmatic needs, connections, relationships between the various departments, kind of how the situation of the building works on the site, various other things. We're in the process of taking that all in and preparing a summary similar to how we did with the subgrade analysis that was done, so that we can present that to you, so that you'll have some context for the report. One of the early findings I would say out of the report is a real recognition of the changes that are liable to be synergistic in the nearby commercial area that we have here, that's bounded not only by this new city building, but also by Granby Crossing. And so we've identified that as an early area where we need to do some area planning. And we're talking with the consultant now to bring that consultant on to start doing some very limited, very focused area planning just right around the municipal building site here. And hopefully that will be able to start in the next few weeks. We will work out public interaction processes around that as well, once we get moving on it. Let's see. The Link Us team, appreciate the presentation tonight. We are engaged with the technical planning group for Link Us, and so really getting into the details. We've had one meeting. I think there's 3 more community meetings to go, and then we have a focused Granby Heights oriented specific meeting coming up that we're preparing for. We're having one of our WARPC interns help with coming up with some ideas and relationships between vehicular access and active transportation modes, whether it's sidewalks or bike paths, what have you, to try to get connected in the horizontals into that north-south bus access. So that meeting's coming up soon. On the economic development strategic planning front, we are continuing to have interviews with various regional partners. This past month we had an interview with WARPC and with ULI, and those have thrown off some additional conversations and questions that we're looking into. We are again preparing for a broader input phase once we get the Bang the Table site up and running, so that we have all of that information fed back through that site to help with analysis of data and just summarizing information that we get back. Another one of our intern projects is that we have Sean looking into incentive programs from around the region and from around the state, and really creating kind of a summary for what he's finding out from the various different municipalities as well from the state, and how we can interplay with those better and understand them better, and maybe find some innovations that we might want to take advantage of. So we're doing some local work as well as with our partner on economic development. Similarly, we've been really diving into the details of the Jet Z for the past month. Opportunities really kind of came to light because of the Link Us project. There's a recognition in that document and a little kind of sketch if you go look at the full document online, talking about building out the Lennox into a mixed-use development with net additional approximately 5,900 jobs. It is arguably the biggest economic development opportunity that the city of Granby Heights has, never mind our partner, Clinton Township. So it's something that we very much want to get ahead of and understand and help orient in a positive direction. So we've been working on beginning to develop good pathways for communication with Clinton Township and a good approach for that redevelopment opportunity over the past month as well. And that's the gist of it. If you have any questions, happy to answer those.
are there any questions for the director? All right, moving on. City Attorney report, Director Suzanne.
I provided you with my report and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, President. Laura, can you characterize some of the updates for the civil service rule updates, or is that something that we'll be able to see in the future?
We should have final approval at tomorrow night's meeting, but the general gist of the improvements, if you will, is that I think there was some inconsistency or misunderstanding between the departments as to how to move forward with requesting new positions or getting lists of applicants certified. So we facilitated some of that, updated a lot of language that was just truly ancient, and created some flow charts basically so that everybody can follow in a pictorial manner, you know, what the steps are so that they can come in prepared. I think some of the challenge, it's not that they were doing anything wrong, but sometimes they struggled with whether they had to come in, you know, 1, 2, or 3 times to make their ask for a new position to get filled. We also tried to facilitate some of the challenges around, you know, the competitiveness of recruiting. One particular example is in the police department. A lot of the area departments, you know, were competing with the same candidate with 2 or 3 other towns. And so the commission agreed with the chief's recommendation to create a lateral hiring structure that is different from the applicant pool of brand new, you know, no experience officers. So that was a definite improvement and will serve the police department well in that regard. Trying to think of what some of the other major changes were that we made.
So, Director, does that mean with the lateral hire that that person doesn't need to go through as like a new applicant? Basically,
Right.
they would
So
have.
if they have 2 or more years of experience as an officer in good standing in another community, they would not have to sit for the examination just like, you know, somebody right out of the academy would. And that effectively saves the city a lot of money because the training to orient a new officer is pretty significant.
That makes sense.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, moving on to old business item number 1.
Ordinance 2022-02, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a development incentive agreement with Revolucion Employee LLC, providing economic incentives to expand and relocate operations within the city of Grandview Heights and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards, you're presenting that.
Yes, committee met just prior to this meeting. Staff were able to share details of the agreement. The applicant, Revolution Employee LLC, is Condado Taco's parent company. They're going to grow by 30 employees to a total of 59 over 5 years. These are good paying, in-person jobs. Thank you to staff for work on construction of the agreement. It's a mutually beneficial agreement, allows Condado to grow here in Grandview in a way that leads to increased tax revenues to the city. Committee did recommend approval after the 3rd reading.
Thank you. We'll record that as a 2nd reading. Moving on to new business item number 1.
Resolution 02-2022, a resolution to waive the provisions of section 529.07B3 of the codified ordinances for pre-approved Nordecki tailgate events preceding Columbus Crew soccer games during the 2022 season.
Thank you. Councilmember Hasinos, would you like to speak on this legislation?
I would, thank you. As Mr. Dvorsky, Director Dvorsky had mentioned, this is actually the culmination of nearly a year's worth of conversations and planning, maybe even a little bit more, about how we can optimize Grandview Heights' position to the new Crew Stadium. And, you know, at the first conversation, almost almost feels like it was hypothetical and theoretical in nature, like it was almost a joke. Like, I have a business on Goodale, and some of it, I think Bob might have just come in, and he's like, oh, your business is yellow and gold in here, you could make this the crew tailgate spot. And I was like, yeah, maybe I could, but I'm like, that's kind of far. But anyway, if I'm remembering it right, that's kind of how it started, that it was, the black and gold is not an accident in the biscuit shop, by the way, it is because we're crew fans, but not because I had any great dreams of like being the biscuit hub of Columbus Crew. But as it turns out, you know, my family and I are crew fans. I happened to mention it to my husband, who is a local attorney, who represents somebody whose internal counsel happens to be on the Nordecker board. And so he put me in touch with Charles Camposano, who put me in touch with Jeff Barger, who is here today, and the conversations began. And we just started talking about hey, what if we could do this? And would Nordeca be interested in doing this? If I was able to maybe take this to the city and possibly pull this off. I have no idea if anybody will even listen to me. And then here we are. So this has been well thought out, well planned, much discussed. Local partners have been spoken to. This is a boon for the community. It will bring people here who will patronize other businesses who have been hurting and beat down because of COVID. And it's just cool. So with that being said, Jeff, if you wanted to come up and say anything briefly about Nordec and
Sure. First off, thank you all for having us and hopefully hosting us going forward. What we're talking about here is a great thing for the Nordec and the crew community. The crew community and the Nordec represent thousands of people. Not all of them show up to these events, but a lot do. And it is something that has gone back over 10 years, goes back decades. There are people that have had marriages, businesses, everything started out of these events. Save the Crew was born out of the tailgate. So it's a defining part of the crew community and the culture, and it is one which immensely gives back to the community. To your point, it benefits local businesses. People come, they patronize the local businesses. They don't just hang out at the tailgate. People come in from out of town for this, so the hotels in the area will get a benefit. And then we use this to raise money. So over the last 2 years, we've raised over $150,000 for local charitable organizations. A large portion of that, when possible, has come from events like this. So we're incredibly excited to partner with the city on this, to partner with Best Stage in Grandview, and to keep this tradition going and hopefully growing and expanding. So thank you guys so much for having us, and like I said, hopefully hosting us in the future.
thank you, Jeff.
We really appreciate you coming this evening. Director Dvorsky, do you have anything to add?
No, we always do the what if, and it was just happenstance like that, and then, you know, it's like, well, that might be good, and, yeah, that's what brought us here today. I thought Rebecca did a great job of some of this, and how we got here.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Can I ask a question about President Kelly? So just on Exhibit A, the portion that's in red here, it will be the tailgate location along Rail Street?
Yeah.
Actually, the
That
yellow
is-
area.
The yellow area.
The yellow area is the main tailgate area, the
Okay.
red is like an overflow area.
Okay.
My understanding.
Where's my exhibit?
Gotcha. I was trying to orient myself because it's pretty far zoomed in there. Okay.
Yeah, so, looking at the diagram, I'm trying to think,
This is the
if you
front.
come to this, if you go to the right of the red block, you will be at Hawthorne House.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, turn it horizontal. So it will take up that yellow portion, and so it's just the, so that's where the for sure spot, and so it's kind of, it's the north chunk of that little parking lot in the parking garage by Hofbrau House. The red part is kind of overflow.
Mhm.
So if it's for a match where we're expecting a much larger crowd or some of them, you know, rivalries or things like that, then we might exercise the option to use that spot as well. But the last discussions, unless something has changed without me being present, Baldwin, the actual road, is gonna be used for things like the dumpster, porta potties, at another location away from that, because you don't want food directly next to the restrooms with the trash necessarily. Food trucks, other vendors, and then the actual part of the parking lot will be where you would have pedestrians.
Great, thank you. Is there any other further discussion?
As a crew season ticket holder as well, I'd just like to express my gratitude and this is great.
Okay, this is a resolution. Are there any motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second, clerk please call the roll.
Edwards,
Yes.
Casapatino,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Kosak,
Yes.
Cancera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Resolution 02-2022 has been approved.
And we all have scars we can put on. And a
Very
pretty
nice. They're through the town, so.
Awesome. Good. Thank you.
All right.
Mhm.
All right, we're almost done, so when we're done, maybe we can arrange for a fun photo. Moving on to other business, I have no other business comments from council members.
I would like to make a comment,
Yes,
if I may.
Councilmember Kinsey.
Some of you may have received correspondence via email or other means, a bit of sad news that we lost a very, very genuine and fine individual, Sam Triano, who not only was a lifelong resident here in Granby Heights, but was our service director for an amazing 55 years. Most of you don't know who he is. He left the city about 10 years ago, and it was the only job he ever had. He started as a sanitation worker and put in, I think, at least 45 of those 55 years as the director. He was a wonderful soul, and he will be missed. So, thank you.
Thank you. In addition to that, we lost another community member, Maggie Evans, who was in the same grade as my son. And she was a joy. She helped us to recognize